For, whoops, for the wash drawing, I'm going to do 2 peppers and maybe a cup, but I'm going to draw it in pencil first. Some people that are very advanced draw it just in ink, but if you draw it just in pencil first, you can kind of get everything in the right place. I'm kind of blocking it in because if I just start out with a brush, if I make a mistake, I won't be able to fix it, and then I will have gone dark on a part of a kind of white area that I won't be able to lighten up again. So I'm going to start blocking it in with a pencil, and then I'm going to add wash to it. And behind it, I want to have like a cup. Actually, maybe more like a flower pot. So I'm just getting my drawing kind of ready before I put wash on it. And you can barely see that. I don't want to press hard with the pencil until I am ready to put in a contour. Or maybe I don't want to press hard with the pencil at all and put in the contour with the ink. That composition is kind of boring, so maybe I'll have kind of like another piece of fruit down here just to balance it out. So there's a big shape right here and maybe a shape down here. Now I'm going to try to kind of draw in the shape of the bell pepper shapes. Here's the stem right here. The drawing part will take me a while. I almost drew it in and didn't video the drawing part, but I just wanted you to see this drawing from start to finish. I'm making this smaller. That's not exactly perfect. And I'm going to kind of block in until I feel like I would be okay to start working with a brush. And I'm not going to be able to see that like right away. I'm going to be able to see that while I'm drawing. I'm just thinking to myself, like another thing I'm thinking, do I want to have something in here just to make it more interesting? I'll probably leave it as it is. And I'm putting a piece of fruit down here. I think that's good to start. So I'm just getting my brush and I'm looking for areas, like I want to leave some of the paper really light, but I'm looking for areas that are darker. And I'm just testing out this value on the side. This is just a scrap paper. Okay. So I'm going to block in areas that are darker or medium. Maybe I would call it medium. And remember, if you go too dark, you're not going to be able to fix it. So that's the bad or the downside of doing a wash drawing. Now, if you do wash in charcoal or wash in colored pencil, you will be able to fix it. I tried to go around the drawing. And just look for areas that are light and dark. And then I'll try to, later on, I'll try to like kind of, what's the word for it? Make it all merge together. Okay. Now, for this, I'm going to want to use blending, but I'm just getting some basic values in first. I'm going to want to go, so I'm going to have the table kind of light or white so you can see the cast shadows, and I'm going to want the background to be dark. So I'm going to go in right now and start putting in the background right around the objects. I'm going to have it black so the objects stand out. The nice thing about the watercolor paper is that it dries pretty quickly. So it's not going to stay wet for a long time. It absorbs it and it'll dry. I'm just going right around this pot. I mean, I'm probably going to have it black, getting a little bit lighter as it goes out. So like I put some water in that just for some variety in the background. And the dark again is so that the objects stand out. I'm going to dip my brush in the black again. It had water on it, and just kind of let that bleed into the lighter value. And then I'm coming back over here with water. I'm trying to do wet into wet so the value change doesn't look like a bunch of lines that I have to blend later. And that seems like it might need a little bit more dark. I'm trying to kind of have it bleed into the water. You don't want to have too much water, but this is kind of a nice technique to use. You can get a nice effect with it. But that was kind of a lot of water I just put on there. And then I'm going to dip my brush into the black and come around to this side. And I'm just darkening this background again so that the objects can stand out. If I'm not sure of something, I'm leaving a little space. I can put some black in there later. If I think it might need to be a little bit higher. Just making an outline. And now I'm going to pull some more black into that area. And I'm just kind of getting onto the edge right here. Now see how here I let it dry and it's creating a line that I didn't want. So be careful of that. And then I'm putting some water in here. I'm trying to bring the black out so it gets lighter. Just trying to create something interesting as a background instead of just pure black. Pulling some black into the water. And again, I mean, you can't control this or what happens. That's both the good and the bad part of it, right? So you can get some really nice, amazing bleeds, but then you might get things that you don't necessarily want and you won't be able to fix them. I like it like that. I think that looks pretty nice. So I'm going to leave that. Okay. So now since that's really wet, I'm going to come down to, I may enhance the edges. Actually, I see something I kind of missed. So I'm going to come over here for a minute. I left some space there in case I need to pull that pepper out a little bit more. Okay. So now I'm gonna, since this is all wet and kind of nasty, I mean, I just don't feel like putting my hand on it. I'm gonna come down to this piece of fruit. And I'm just putting in a kind of medium to light value. So I know I'm going all over the place, but the way that this shape is defined is by the background. It's not really like outlined by a contour line. The background is making it stand out. Okay. And I'm going to go even lighter. And it kind of looks the same. I want to leave some white paper showing, but I want to be able to have this blend into the white paper. So I'm getting this little tiny piece of paper towel and blending. And then I'm going to get my dark. And oops, that was a little dark. And I'm trying to put in the cast shadow of these objects. The peppers also have cast shadows. I probably should have done the objects first, but and this is kind of dry now. So I'm going to go back up to the top and I'm going to go in here. So this is basically a lot of layering and looking for values and blending of areas of wash or values of wash. I'm going to darken this area a little bit. And before I do any more, I'm probably going to go into the pepper. Sorry, I'm moving around. All right. I'm going to try to get these kind of taken care of. Do I want to, is that too dark? I'm just talking, I'm asking myself a question. Do I want to wait for this to dry or let it bleed? So I let it bleed. I'm still not sure if that was a great choice. We'll see. If I feel like it's bleeding too much, I'm going to blot with the paper towel. See how much I got off right there? You can use a cotton ball or a Q-tip. There we go. Putting in this dark on the side of the stem. So right now, since I don't like to change my brush a lot, I'm just going around the pepper looking for areas of dark, since I have a dark value on my brush. And I'm just putting in these dark creases. Which need blending, but I'm just kind of blocking them in for right now. Okay, and now I'm going for kind of a more medium value, which looks a bit dark, but I want it to be darker right here. And in between there, I want to go a little bit lighter. So I'm kind of trying to get some of the dark off my brush, and I'm putting in some just lighter value, and I'm letting it bleed or blend. I'm going lighter right here, but I want a little bit of the white paper showing right there. And as you can tell, this takes quite a bit of time. I'm trying to find something in between to kind of blend this dark into the lighter area. Mm, that's not, it's not wonderful, but it's getting there. So I'm going to let that dry and move on to this pepper and see what I need to do. You can't always control it, so you just do your best. So I'm going to try to go darker in this area. Ooh, is that a little too dark? That may be a little too dark. I'm trying to lighten it. There we go. You can do line work with the tip of the brush. It's just sometimes it's not that easy to control. And then I'm going to go lighter in this area and around the edge here. It's not perfect, but and then I'm going to go a little bit darker in here because there's a crease or a bend. Oops, that went way too dark. Okay, so before it dries, I'm going to blot with the paper towel. And I'm probably going to let that dry before I go back in there. Okay, I'm going to leave, I'm going to let it dry. Oops, that is way too dark. I'm going around it with a darker value so it will stand out. I'm going to look at the pot for a minute. Just blocking it in over here, getting lighter as it goes in this direction. But I want to have something slightly darker right under this edge. Kind of a small cast shadow from this edge. And since this part was dry, I'm looking and I'm trying to say to myself, do I like it wet on wet or wet on dry? Which one do I think is a better technique for this drawing? Trying to blend here. Just blend this a little bit. Whoops, I kind of messed it up. Then I'm going to just test it out over here just so I don't get totally surprised by the value. I'm going to put in a light over here. And I want to go lighter towards the edge. So I'm just going to get some water on my brush. I don't know if I want to leave this white and have this blend into the edge. Now it still needs a bit of a darker value right here. I'm actually going to wait till it dries. I think it's going to get a little too messy with wet on wet. So I'm going to take a small little detour from this for a second and come back over here and put in a dark around this pepper. And do I want to go black? I'm putting a little bit of really dark on my brush and letting it bleed. It's not quite black, and it just bled into the pepper, which is not what I wanted. But I'm trying to get this edge defined. I'm going to come back into the edge here and just kind of darken it. And as you can see, you're just letting layer after layer dry. I'm going to, actually these videos can't be too long, so I'm going to stop this and then restart it. So that's my first layer. I'm also going to let it dry for a couple minutes. Okay, so now I'm going to keep going. So I'm going to put in a light up here, and then I may adjust it. I want it a little bit, I don't want, so that's, excuse me, I'm kind of talking all over the place. I don't like this line here, right? I want it to blend. And that's when you like the wet into wet, when you want to blend something. Okay, I'm going to let that dry before I start messing with this, but I'm just going to fill in these little white areas. So you just want to, like when you mess with something, you want to kind of let the area around it dry for a little bit, and then like I want to put in a dark right on the edge, but I'm going to let the whole thing kind of dry off before I do that. I'm going to go dark right here. That may be too dark. I'm just getting some water on my brush. As a cast shadow. And do I want to, I'm talking to myself, I'm thinking to myself, do I want to leave the table white, or the white is a little extreme. So I'm going to come in with a very light wash. And some areas of it may be darker, but I'll worry about that later. That's weird because that bled, but I did that quite a long time ago. I thought it was totally dry. This might bleed, yeah, because I just did it. So I don't want it all that messy. So I'm just getting the paper towel and blotting it. That bled as well, even though I did it a long time ago. So you need to, I mean, if you want it to be truly dry, you need to, I guess, let it dry for a long time. All right, so one thing I notice is that this seems really light. So I may want to go around, I may want to make the table a little bit darker so this stands out in this area. And you darken slowly. You don't want to get really dark really fast because you can't fix it. Okay, so now this is really all wet. So I'm actually going to turn it upside down. Let me move the arrow. Sorry about that. And I'm going to try to block in this. I'm going to work over here for a while that area dries. I'm just putting in kind of a light wash on this. And then I want it to, it's like red ink. Sorry, I'm going to get my paper towel. That's like ink residue. It's like little pieces of dried ink. Okay, so I want it to be a little bit darker right here, but not too dark. And I probably should have waited for that to dry, but it actually didn't bleed. And then I want to enhance this, like there's a white little spot right here. So I'm going over that with the black. And I'm just getting rid of that white area. But oops, not what I wanted to happen. That's when you get your mistake that you don't want. But actually the paper towel kind of does blot pretty well. Let me just get a clean piece of paper towel. So if you make a mistake that starts bleeding, then you use the paper towel. You can also use a cotton ball. And I know I already said that before. I'm just bringing this black out. Just making it stand out a little bit more. And I'm going to go up this edge with the black and bring it out. And I'm going to define this edge a little bit more, try to make it a little bit more straight. And I'm going to come right up here again. Hopefully it doesn't bleed. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. It's kind of hard to see on the screen, but so I'm just bringing the black around. And I'm going to bring it around the pepper. And do I want to bring it over here? And then I'm going to kind of bring this dark up a little bit. Okay, I'm turning it around now because that's all kind of wet. Alrighty. So now I'm going to look back into this shape. And I'm kind of trying to define it with a dark value. Or darker value, excuse me, instead of dark value. And I can leave it like that, or I can just put some, well, I don't like that. Just got really muddy. Putting some water there and then blotting it. Bringing the cast shadow out a little bit more. And I'm probably going to, let me go under a little bit. And I want to make, again, the area around it a little bit darker. And I mean, I'm slowly making it darker so it doesn't look really, really weird. Or it doesn't get too dark too fast. I don't want it to just look like I want it to blend into the lighter area of the table, right? I don't want it to just look like it doesn't make sense. Okay. That looks kind of weird with the white around it, but I was trying to go for a reflected light. But let me move on to some other areas of the drawing. I'm going to go back into the peppers. And I'm just redefining some of the areas. I'm looking for darks right now. That still needs a lot of work. This is like an indentation, right? That's darker, but I want it to blend in instead of looking like a big, like weird chunk or dark shape. I want it to kind of blend in to the lighter areas, but I feel like I'm going to have a lot of problems doing that. So I'm just trying to really define different areas that I think are darker right now. I don't know. It's definitely not perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to look at this pepper, and this area is a lot darker compared to that area. I'm trying not to touch so it doesn't bleed. This is quite challenging. I mean, it's much more challenging than using a pencil. I'm going light right here. But I want to leave some of the white showing on that pepper. I should have left more showing on this pepper. And I'm going to come back in with a black for the cast shadow, or close to black. Okay. I need to come, I don't know. It's definitely not perfect. I need to come back up into this um, area. So I want this again to be darker and move to a lighter value as it travels to the other side. And then I'm going to come back in with a little bit of a darker value and go under this and bring it down. That's going to make this pop out. It's okay. I mean, if you like here, you can see some little watercolor over water. I mean, ink over ink marks. I call it watercolor because it's wash, but it's very similar to watercolor. And if you like those, you can leave them. I want to make it a little bit darker around this shape. So this shape stands out. The light in this shape stands out. So looking at values as they relate to each other. Is that too much? I think that looks okay. Sorry about that. And then I'm going to go back in up here with a little bit of a darker value. Okay, I'm going to leave that alone for a minute. I'm just looking at it. I'm just sitting and looking at it and thinking about what I may need to change. It is definitely not perfect by any means, but I'm going to come back here and go darker. Trying to blend that up. It's probably and that is definitely not. I'm going to go around this. This white is a little too much for me. It's definitely not perfect by any means, but it's getting to look more and more like a still life. And this is something that takes a lot of practice. I do like, the one thing I really do like is how the background just bled and created that really nice watercolor or ink wash area. Sorry, I'm calling it watercolor, but it's similar to watercolors. So I think I'm going to stop it here. It could use another couple layers, but I feel like I'm going to mess it up if I keep working on it.